We are gathered here today for the funeral of Nathaniel Hackett because holy shitballs, did Sean Payton put him in the dirt. If you haven't seen it, there was an exclusive interview with Sean Payton and a USA Today reporter, and he ripped into the 2022 Broncos, and he called Nathaniel Hackett out by name. So this is what we're going to do on the show. We're going to run through pretty much the whole article and look at all the quotes, and every single quote you think is the best one yet, or at least the most skin-piercing one, and then it just keeps getting worse and worse for Hackett. So we're going to run through all the quotes. Before we look at any quotes, though, I do want to start off by saying I think Sean Payton is a smart guy. He's a calculated man. And I don't think he did this just to put a low blow out there for Nathaniel Hackett. I don't think he woke up today or woke up yesterday whenever he did the interview and said, yeah, let's make Nathaniel Hackett's day awful. Let's put a target on our back. I think he did this to send a message to the locker room, to kind of rally the troops a little bit and fire them up. Whether or not that works, we will find out. But I believe that is why Sean Payton did this, because he's a smart guy, right? Head coaches are meticulous. They do things for very specific reasons, and there is a reason why he went after Hackett and called him out by name. I think he wants to send a message to this locker room to get rid of the stink from last year and put it all on Hackett. Well, not all, as he'll say, but a lot of it on Hackett and move on from last season. Did he have to go for his throat? Maybe not this hard, but let's get started with the first quote from his USA Today interview where he said, I'm going to be pissed off if this is not a playoff team. So I can see where Sean Payton is coming from because there are a lot of reasons why this team should be a playoff team. In fact, there are, almost 400 million reasons why this team should be a playoff team because there is a ton of investment on the offense. I mean, just the payrolls alone. Russell Wilson, $242 to $245 million. Mike McGlinchey caught $87.5 million in free agency. Courtland Sutton, Garett Bolles, Ben Powers, and that doesn't even include guys like Judy, Tim Patrick, Javonte Williams, a lot of really good players too that aren't making a ton of money, but there has been a huge monetary investment to this half of the football. And the defensive side of the football too, right? Randy Gregory got $70 million in free agency. You've got what I believe is an all-pro caliber player in Justin Simmons. You got Zach Allen for nearly $50 million. DJ Jones is making $30 million. And then you have players like Pat Surtain, who might not be breaking the bank, but he's by far the best player on this team, I would say. So I can see why Sean Payton goes, we should make the playoffs because we have spent a lot of money to make the playoffs. I mean, that's why you give out these big contracts to win games to go to the postseason. But also, even if they don't have a lot of big contracts, they do have a lot of talent. Like, take a trip down memory lane with me for a second. Flash back to before Denver got Russell Wilson. Coming out of that 2021 season, what was the big storyline? Denver's just a quarterback away, right? Under Vic Fangio, they had a very good defense. They had a lot of good pieces on offense. The only question mark is the quarterback position, and if they could find one, they would be an AFC contender. Insert Russell Wilson, and it looks like Denver is going to be with the big dogs of the AFC. Now, we know how last season went. We don't need to rehash that. But I still believe at its core, this team is still a good quarterback play away. They did not get good quarterback play last year. They were the worst offense in football. If the offense just scored 2 touchdowns a game, 15, 16 points, they would have been a playoff team. Literally. I mean, that's how close they were to winning some of those 9 one-score losses. So I can see where Sean Payton comes from of expectations are the playoffs because there's a huge investment in this locker room, and this team is very talented too. They just need to get better quarterback play. But let me know, will the Broncos make the playoffs as Sean Payton put it? Yes or no? We're going to continue to roll through some of these very juicy quotes, but I want to hear from everyone watching right now and whether or not you think Denver will end up making the postseason. More from Payton in this article. It doesn't happen often where an NFL team or organization gets embarrassed, and that happened here. Part of it was their own fault relative to spending so much effing time trying to win the offseason, the PR, the pomp and circumstance, marching people around, and all this stuff. I understand what Sean Payton is saying of there was a lot of extracurricular activities last year in the offseason, and players were getting awarded before they even won a game. But, Sean, when you kind of go out to the media and do an exclusive interview like this and draw a lot of attention like this article does, how different is that from what Denver was doing last year in the offseason, where they were drawing a lot of attention? Different types of attention, but I'm not going to just be a sheep and blatantly agree with everything Sean Payton says in this article, because how different is that from what you're doing right now? You're drawing a lot of attention by doing this exclusive interview, right? You're getting a lot of eyeballs on this team. You are putting a target on your back for that Week 5 game against the Jets. So I don't know if you're really in a position to criticize last year's team for doing extracurricular activities in the offseason, where this is not very different in my eyes. All right. Sean Payton, of course, did talk about Russell Wilson last year, and here's what he said. Oh, man, there's so much dirt around that. There's 20 dirty hands for what was allowed, tolerated in the freaking training rooms, the meeting rooms, the offense. I don't know, Hackett. A lot of people had dirt on their hands. It wasn't just Russell. He didn't just flip. He still has it. That BS that he hit a wall, shoot, they couldn't get a play in. They were 29th in the league in pre-snap penalties on both sides of the ball. And boom goes the dynamite. There it is. Sean Payton calls out Hackett by name, something you almost rarely ever see when a new head coach calls out the former head coach by name. Now, I am sure Sean Payton didn't just go and vent to the media because he had something to get off his chest. I'm sure he did this for a reason, and I bet the reason is to fire up the troops in the locker room. It better work, because if not, he's going to be a bigger clown than Hackett. I mean, if you call out someone by name and say a lot of bad things about the previous regime, and then you don't back it up, it's going to get ugly. But he is spot on when it comes to the penalties. I mean, you guys can see for yourselves, Denver was one of the worst disciplined teams last season. They had the second most penalties in football, only behind the Arizona Cardinals with 113. They had the most penalty yards, 970. They had 7 delay of games, as we all well remember. False starts, 23, tied for third most. And offsides on the defensive side, so pre-snap penalties going both ways. 8 offsides, that's tied for fourth most in the league last year. So there is a lot to clean up. I mean, Payton's not wrong when it comes to that. Did he have to call out Hackett by name? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It's kind of fun. I mean, for the rest of us standing here on the sideline, it's like get your popcorn ready type of stuff, because it is fun to see the drama unfoil and get ready for what's going to be a season to remember, and including a Week 5 matchup against the New York Jets when they come to town with their new offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett. So this is going to be one of the most anticipated games of the year now. The teams could be 0-4 going into this game. It's going to be must-see TV, right? Hackett's going to want to come in here and put up 35 on Sean Payton. Not even put up 35 on Denver so much. He just wants to prove Sean Payton wrong and prove that it was not all on him or not majority on him. And as for Sean Payton, when you go after a guy like this and you call him out by name, you can expect he is going to work even harder in the week leading up to this game. So he's got to bring his A-game stuff, and he's got to make sure this team does not make him eat his words and eat shit, more or less. But I did find that one little bit about Russell Wilson not just hitting a wall. I mean, his last 4 years in Seattle, the guy was Russell Wilson, right? Before he got injured in 2021, he threw 40 touchdowns in 2020, completed nearly 70% of his passes. Season prior to that, 2 straight seasons of 4,000-plus yards, 5 interceptions. I mean, he has a lot of body of work under him. There's a lot of data points. But Russell Wilson, we know, is a very good quarterback. I mean, at one point, he was an undoubted top 10 QB. He did not look like that or anything close to it last year. But I can see where Payton's coming from of you don't just fall off like that. There's a lot that happens into Russell Wilson going down the shitter, more or less. And hopefully he can get him back to where he was when Denver traded for him. And I'm going to be inclined to believe that with better coaching and less pre-snap penalties and not getting the play call in until the last seconds, that Russell Wilson could be a better quarterback. But that doesn't make me forget the times where Russell Wilson had a wide-open KJ Hamler in the end zone against the Colts, and he missed him. Or the Texans game when he threw it off Cushenberry's helmet. So I can this can go both ways, more or less, where, yes, Russell Wilson didn't just fall off the face of the earth and become overnight a horrible quarterback, but I also think that Russell Wilson has some of his own skeletons in last year, and a lot of it was on him, and it's not just on the coaching staff. Now, this season is going to be like an NBA offseason type NFL in-season, with the drama now surrounding this team, with Sean Payton calling out Hackett by name, and all the storylines surrounding Russell Wilson and Sean Payton trying to fix him. I can't wait for this year. So if you are with me, subscribe today. If you're looking for a Broncos YouTube channel, consider hitting that sub button down below. More from Mr. Payton. That wasn't his fault on Russell Wilson's entourage. That was the parents who allowed it. That's not an incrimination on him, but an incrimination on the head coach, the GM, the president, and everybody else who watched it all happen. Now, a quarterback having an office and a place to watch film is normal. But all those things get magnified when you are losing. And that other stuff, I've never heard of it. We're not doing that. Talking about his private quarterback coach, Jay Keeps. I'm going to say, Russ, he's not a rookie. Like, don't just put blame on the head coach and the GM and everyone else who watched it because Russell Wilson didn't know any better. Like, he's not a child. He's a 12-year NFL vet, or he's got a lot of NFL experience. I don't buy this idea of Russell Wilson having no blood on his hands for all of the issues last season. So, yes, the GM and the head coach stood by and watched him have his own entourage and have his own personal quarterback trainer or quarterback coach come onto the facilities and whatnot, which we watched, or at least I watched NFL's quarterback, and you saw all these guys have personal trainers. So it's not just Russell Wilson. But let's not act like Russell Wilson doesn't know any better. The guy's an NFL vet. He's been around the block for a long time. I don't like this idea of it's only on the coaching staff for permitting it to happen. Russ isn't some rookie, and it's his first year in the league, and he didn't know any better. Another quote from this, by the way, as they continue to just roll out. Everything I heard about last season, we're doing the opposite. Wow. Wait a minute. You're telling me there's no cahoots? Because the cahoots were awesome last year, and I learned that Lloyd Cushenberry would be a good player because he was really good at cahoot. So I might have a hard disagree with you on this one, Mr. Payton. But, yeah, it's safe to say that this is going to be a 180 of last year in training camp, where Nathaniel Hackett didn't play any of the starters in the preseason. He was relatively light in the workouts leading up to the regular season. Tim Patrick went down with an ACL tear. He didn't want to see anyone else get hurt. And I can see some skepticism as a first-year head coach. And he comes under the Sean McVay coaching tree, right, from LaFleur over in Green Bay, where they don't play starters in the preseason. And Sean Payton is an old-style head coach. If it was up to him, every practice would be padded. But he's going to go full throttle as much as the collective bargaining agreement allows him to be, and it's going to be very different than last season. So if you want to see the starters play in preseason, that's going to happen under Sean Payton. Before we get on to the rest of today's show, there is still an awesome deal with our friends over at Fanatics. If you are a fan of Denver's new alternate helmet, you can get this t-shirt. They've got some other swag available, a long sleeve t-shirt, lots of really cool stuff. So get it today, chatsports.com/DEN alternate. That link's in the comments and the description of today's video. Sean Payton went on to say, but everyone's got a little stink on their hands. It's not just Russell. It was a poor offensive line. It might have been one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL. That's how bad it was. You know how earlier I said, boom goes the dynamite, there's the kill shot? I take it all back. That's the kill shot right there. Saying it was one of the worst coaching jobs in NFL history. And is he wrong? Like, it's not very common that coaches get fired midseason. And it's even less common that they get fired midseason of their first year. They weren't even allowed to coach 17 games to put together a full season of work to show upper management that they deserve a second season. It was a Christmas massacre in Los Angeles, and the upper management, the ownership, had enough of it, and they fired Hackett on December 26th. So, yeah, it's pretty brutal. It's right to the jugular, but it's not really wrong. If you had to put together the worst coaching jobs in NFL history, I think number one is probably Urban Meyer, because even Hackett got longer than Urban Meyer did. But Hackett's top 5 in terms of worst individual coaching jobs. He was clearly in over his head. I'll always wonder if they hired him just even for a little bit because they might have gotten Aaron Rodgers, or that had nothing to do with it. And I'll ask this. If George Paton was told, you can hire Hackett, but I'm telling you from the future right now, you don't get Aaron Rodgers, do they still hire Hackett? We'll never know. But let me know. What are your thoughts overall on Sean Payton ripping a new one into Nathaniel Hackett? Just sound off for me in the comment section. An open-ended question. Let me know what your thoughts are, if you went too far, if you loved it, because it was just fun to see someone dunk on Hackett after what he put the fan base through last year of another year of awful Broncos football since 2015. Yeah, open-ended. It's an open mic. Let me know in the comment section. We've got a good summer hot take today because it is a high of 93 degrees in Denver as the heat wave continues in the Mile High City. So my first hot take is this. The Broncos beat the Jets by a touchdown. I don't think that's too much of a hot take, but the hot take is I don't think the Jets make the playoffs. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is due for a turnaround season. I'm a student of history. Every time my girlfriend goes out of town, I watch World War II in color. And if I've learned anything from history, it is that when Green Bay Packers quarterbacks go to the New York Jets, it doesn't always end very well for the fan base over on the East Coast. So I think that's going to happen again. Not buying into the Jets' hype this offseason. And I think Denver takes care of business when the Jets come to town in Week 5.